Thank you for joining us here today, the Live Local Marketing. And we are with Phillippa Gamse, who is going to be talking to us about her expertise and knowledge about the websites. Again, a really quick review of the format for this show is we have the topics off to the side. She gets 2 minutes to talk about each one. If she goes a little under, fine. A little over, also fine. But it's all the knowledge and information she has to give us. And at the very end, she'll talk about her business and how to get a hold of her. So that way you too can get your website looked at by her experts in knowledge. Ma'am, are you all set, ready to go?
Yep, let's check.
Okay. My first one is always my favorite one. As an entrepreneur, what do you consider your first win?
Starting my own business, I guess. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I thought you were going to say in analytics, which would be a whole different question or answer. I mean, I moved to the US in the early 90s. Obviously, I moved for work, or I had a job here, decided I wanted to stay. Really became very clear early on that I wanted to start my own business. But since I was on a work visa, I couldn't do that until I'd got my green card. So, okay. And now I'm a fully fledged US citizen as well. So yeah, I mean, get a green card, quit, start my own business. So that, I guess, yeah, if you say what was my first win, that was probably it.
So how did you get your first client then? So if you start your business, you don't just automatically start a business. You have to have clients and things to support that business. How did that look?
Well, this was, obviously a few years ago, unfortunately, but in those days, I mean, this was right sort of in the early days of the internet. Okay. So it wasn't like we were networking all day on LinkedIn like we do now. I literally did the old fashioned thing and joined a couple of local chambers of commerce. Got it. Looked for, if you're doing a local business, this is what you do, right? Looked for some, like local Rotary groups that luckily I was a decent speaker, that I could speak to, and you just have to get out there and start getting your name out there.
So how did they know that you were an expert? So it's not like you can carry your computer around with you like you can now. Like, how did they know how good you were?
I guess that you just have to say what you know. I mean, obviously you have to come up with a topic that's going to make people say, okay, that sounds interesting. How can you talk about that? And then you have to talk about it. I hate selling, like people could talk about selling from the stage. I've always thought that if you can just talk intelligently about what your expertise is, that sells you in and of itself. You don't have to say, buy me every 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's good. That's good knowledge. That's good. So as an entrepreneur, what would you consider your best habit to be?
Walking my dog.
That's great.
I bet you weren't expecting. No, but you know what? We've got a friend staying here at the moment, and this morning she was listening to a major meditation guru talking about good practices, and they were talking about mental space. And how if you proactively stop every so often and just check in with your mind and say, is my mind clear? Am I thinking properly? Am I okay? Am I upset about something? And I realized, so I have a dog and we walk 3 times a day. And that's exactly what I do while I'm walking the dog is, okay, what am I doing? What am I doing next? What do I absolutely need to get done in the next few hours? Where am I? That kind of stuff. And walking, it's exercise. You're outside, you're in the fresh air. And I do find that the physical movement, especially for somebody who's got the sort of job where you sit at your desk all day, it's very, very helpful.
Do you find yourself like at certain times a day? Then you say 3 times a day. Is it like, 10 a.m. every day? Do you find those kind of patterns forming?
Well, I mean, she has to get walked when she, first thing in the morning.
Got it.
Then we have a lunchtime walk. So those are usually at fairly obvious times. Obviously the thing that happens in the winter. So we live out in the country and you can't walk once it gets dark here because she's a very small dog. And we have coyotes and raccoons, and it's just too dangerous for her to be out after dusk. So now that the days are very short, I have to walk her by about 4ish, whereas obviously in the summer it's later. So, that changes.
That's very
Sorry, I'm sure nobody really is very that interested in how often I walk my dog. I don't know.
No, but that's good. I mean, that's exactly, because it's funny. You would be surprised how often that answer comes up.
Really?
That the successful people will take intentional breaks when they feel like they need breaks. It's a very reoccurring theme for sure.
Well, for me, one of the biggest advantages of having my own business is that I get to run my day. And obviously, there are times when a client needs something or they need to make a meeting at a certain time. And obviously, you've got to be flexible in that. But I really appreciate, I'm just not good at getting up in the morning, getting, all dressed up and getting on a train and going into some sort of office. I just can't do that.
Well, that actually moves us really nicely into talking about like your systems. So you have the dog walking that you do and you kind of set your own schedule, but do you have like systems that you use to create the consistency and things that your business needs?
You mean like technology type systems?
Whatever you use, like whatever advice you would have, whatever things work for you.
Well, I guess, there's a list of things that I check every day. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I like to monitor for example, who visits my profile on LinkedIn. And typically, if I see that somebody's visited my profile, I'll invite them to connect if I'm not connected to them. So I like to do that fairly often because I guess I have a fairly active profile, but it really helps to grow my network. I'm a member of Podmatch, which is podcast matching. So matched. I don't. Did we meet on Podmatch? I don't remember.
Yes, we actually did.
We did. Right. There you go.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I systematically do is check what's going on in Podmatch and if there are any recommended podcasts that I'd like to pitch to and so on. So I think you have to have certain things that you say this is worth doing, and I do it most or every day. Technology. It's amazing the technology we have now. We have calendaring software and we have things like Podmatch, and we have AI. We're probably going to talk about AI at some point, I guess. That do some of the stuff that we have CRMs where we can set reminders to do stuff that we didn't used to have, and all that kind of thing.
Nice. Do you have you said like a checklist type of thing? Is that one of the
things? It's not written down. It's in my head.
But it's very loosely based checklist.
Yeah.
Oh, in your head? Holy cow, that's impressive. You don't have it written down or anything?
I know there are all these people out there who say you have to write down your goals. You have to physically write down your goals, which is the only way that you can get committed to them. And I have never done that. And it's not that I'm trying to say these people are wrong. Absolutely not. I think you have to do what works for you. But I've always been somebody, when I speak, I've never written my programs out. If I'm using PowerPoint, that's kind of like my cue card. But I just get in my head, okay, there are 5 points to this speech. Here's where this particular story goes. Here's where this one goes. And it's in my head and it sort of just comes out.
So it's basically experience. You've just done it enough that you just have this natural flow to it at this point, it seems like.
I don't know, but
So actually, it's fun. I'm gonna change the next question because I think the answer to your burnout question is the fact that you walk your dog so much. That's really how you de-stress. So I'm gonna pivot a little bit, and I'm gonna ask you at this point, after all these years, what types of activities do you still handle yourself versus how much do you hand off to like a VA or a team?
It's me right now. I used to have a VA. A lot of what I do at this point, I think, is so. I could hand off the thing like check your LinkedIn profile, and if somebody's visited, connect. But there's a lot that I do that I feel is quite specialized, and I'm not typically a very good delegator unless it's something that's so obvious how to do it. And I tend to have assignments that are quite specialized. So, I've never wanted to have a team. I have to admit, I love working with people. There are people that I partner with. We're talking to a potential client next week with my web designer because I don't do design, right? So, this person needs a really good strategy and a really good website. So partnering with somebody is great, but I never wanted to be responsible for payroll and stuff like that. It's
sense.
just, yeah.
So when you had a VA, so you said at one point you had a VA, what types of
Yeah.
activities were you handing off to them?
Marketing, for example, I used to do a lot more speaking. So looking for speaking opportunities. She was a specialist in the speaking industry. That kind of thing, you know, pitching and stuff like that, updating my website, you know, but these days I actually do that, give that to my web designer, because I can't do that anymore. I used to do that.
No, that's wild. All right. So moving into the next one. So right now, as far as your book and your marketing and other things, what's your favorite strategy that you're using to kind of market your services in your book?
I'm using a lot of LinkedIn.
Okay.
And at the moment I'm actually so my book, Website Wealth, came out in June, and I'm looking, I'm doing a lot of, I'm doing a little research project right now, and just asking people how they measure the performance of their website. And I'm actually analyzing all the answers with a trained AI system.
Oh.
And what's quite interesting is actually, so it's not a pitch, it's a question, it's just a question. And it goes out with a personalized comment to them so that they know that the question isn't written, or the message is not written by AI, it is from me. And getting all sorts of answers. And it's very interesting because there are people who say, oh, my website does great. And you know, immediately that's probably not true. There are people who said, you know what, my website isn't great, and since we're talking, perhaps we could have a chat, and that does generate some leads. But it's also just producing very, very interesting data, and the sort of level of how are people really thinking about their websites, and how much are they really using analytics effectively, as opposed to, you know, looking at the sort of things that we call vanity metrics and saying, you know, everything's working because we've got more traffic this week than we did last week, without going into but were they the right people? You know, did they do anything? That kind of thing. So I'm using LinkedIn very, very heavily, but in a very sort of systematic and strategic, hopefully, way.
That's really good. So when you sit down and talk to people and you said you don't want to use vanity metrics, there's certain real metrics. What are those real? What metrics are you really looking for when you meet with people?
Well, you know, that honestly depends on what a great consultant up to, right? It depends. It honestly depends on what their specific strategy is for their website and what they're working on right now. Because a huge mistake that a lot of people make is to measure absolutely everything there is. I mean, you know, if it walks, measure it. So, and it's completely meaningless, because the only point of measuring something is if you want to do something about it. So if you are saying how many people, you know, buy this particular product and you don't think it's enough, then you want to do something about it, right? How many people watch this video or listen to this podcast? How many of those drop off in the first 30 seconds? Because you would be amazed how many people do.
I wouldn't.
Right. So what does that mean? Is the podcast not useful or effective? Of course not. But maybe the beginning of it isn't compelling enough that you're getting people to keep listening. So honing in on some specific things that, if you can optimize them, will help to grow your business, is much more effective than, as I say, measuring everything that is and then doing nothing about it.
So really the conversation has to start with their goals. It's got to start with like what you're trying to, that it's got nothing to do with the website at all.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that's what my book's about. So my book, we were talking about Vince Warnock earlier. He's the inspiration and the editor behind it. But my book is for business leaders who don't necessarily want to get to grips with analytics for themselves. Because my point is, yeah, you can hire somebody like me to do that, but I can't do it without really understanding your business and your goals and your strategies and what you're trying to achieve. And you're the one who understands that way better than anybody else. And it's amazing how many people can't actually articulate that well. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true.
Yeah.
And when you look at your website, it should be absolutely clear. What are you trying to do here? Not just for the website as a whole, but every single page, because every page needs to have its own strategies, its own calls to action to drive people forward to where you want them to go and what you want them to do. Because if it doesn't, they'll maybe figure it out for themselves, maybe not. You can't rely on it.
It's just fluff otherwise.
Yeah. So when I work with a client, this is the first conversation we have, and we don't look at the website. We talk about what's going on. What's going on for the business? What are your goals? Who are your markets? What are you trying to do? Okay, how does the website fit into that? And then how could the website help to grow that? Because once you get your website working well, there are all sorts of opportunities to find in the insights that you can see. Opportunities for new products, services, or maybe target markets that you wouldn't have realized.
Yeah,
and again, cool. In the book, there are a lot of stories. I mean, the book is in English. It's because it's designed for business leaders, right? It's in English, no charts, no graphs, no techie stuff, but lots of stories and examples of things like I've just talked about, like, actually growing new areas of your business based on insights that you couldn't possibly otherwise have had.
I'm buying that book. I'm gonna be ready to go once that thing is out. I skipped the foregone question because I like this one better. I liked our answer better, so I skipped one of them. I'm going to go to the last one because last one is, you've been doing this for quite some time. How did you build up enough confidence to start doing it on your own? And what advice would you give young entrepreneurs that still aren't quite confident enough? How do they gain the confidence?
Wow. I think, to be honest, I mean, I went to a school that instilled confidence, and I went and I was, before I left England, I was a consultant with Deloitte, and, consultant training is, or certainly then, I don't know what it is now, but it gives you some skills. There's no question. And I think that you've got to enjoy it. You've got to want to do it, because otherwise you're not going to get into it. But if you find something you really enjoy and you really want to get into and you really want to dig into, years ago, I think I saw a speaker called Jim Cathcart who inspired me to become a speaker. And one of the things he said, I think this came from somebody that had inspired him. But if you find this thing that you really enjoy and you want to know more about it, and you study it for even 5 minutes a day, after and you do it consistently, after a year, you know way more about that topic than anybody else, right?
That's awesome.
And in and of itself can give you the confidence, because I mean, in digital marketing, it changes all the time. I mean, what I know today is not going to help me next year if I don't stay up to date. It's going to help me somewhat, but you have to keep going. And so I think that that's the thing. There's the constant curiosity that you need to bring, and if you have that naturally, then you're gonna know your stuff. And as you talk to people and you realize that you can help them because you do know more than they do, and you do know more about how to do it than they do, then that hopefully breeds confidence. I mean, does that make sense?
That's good. No, that's perfect. Yeah, and it's the getting into something you love, starting someplace in it, taking a couple of those baby steps, and then just building up on it. I want to do more. I want to learn more, and just taking it a little bit at a time until you get to the person you want to be.
Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. All right, so before we get into your being able to chat about your business and the call to action where you want people to go, I want to thank you for your time, your experience, and your years of experience. Being able to just find yourself in your business seems to be very inspiring, and I hope the audience loves it and they buy your book, because they need to get a chance to look at their website a little bit deeper, because our websites do need to do more than a business card. It has to tell the story and drive people. So I hope they follow up with you and buy your book, and so they will leave with your thoughts. Tell us a little bit about your business and where they can find more information about you.
Yeah, honestly, I have to say that I've reviewed thousands of websites in my time, and almost all of them were leaving money on the table somewhere. It's amazing where there are leaks, where you're losing revenue that you don't know about, you're losing visitors that you don't know about. And as I said, you're missing out on some of those opportunities for new products or services that you don't know about. You can't tell these things just by looking at the website from the front, or just by knowing how many sales or leads you got. And so that's my goal, is to inspire business leaders to look at analytics a bit more. I mean, I know it can be overwhelming, it can be confusing, but you can always find people like me to help you. But you need to know, as I said earlier, what you need to know. My book is called Website Wealth, A Business Leader's Guide to Driving Real Value from Your Analytics. It is out, so it's out in all forms. And my name is Phillippa Games. You can find me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. And my website is called Websites That Win. So it's websitesthatwin.com. And yeah, please let me know if I can help, or if you have questions, or if you'd just like to connect and hang out.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're going to have all that information in the description. So if you want to connect with her, super easy. I appreciate your time today and sharing your vast experience with us.
Thank you so much.